Okay, so you guys wanted us to go deep on this one, right? Allegations of sexual abuse within the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community, specifically the Chabad Lubavitch in Melbourne, Australia.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah. And we're going to be relying mostly on video documentaries for this one.
Lots of first-hand accounts.
It's intense. Like, imagine sitting down with the victims, their families, rabbis, people who live and breathe this world, and hearing their stories, unfiltered. That's what we're dealing with here.
Raw and powerful. We're going to be careful, navigate this with sensitivity. We're going to explore the accusations, try to understand the religious law, the community pressures, the impact it's had on everyone involved.
Right. And we really want you guys listening to be a part of this deep dive. What stands out to you? What questions pop up for you? Because this isn't just about laying out the facts. It's about understanding the human stories behind them.
Exactly. So to set the stage, Chabad Lubavitch, it's a branch of Hasidic Judaism.
Known for their outreach.
Yes. And their strict adherence to religious law. You probably picture them, right? Black hats, beards, coats, often concentrated in specific neighborhoods.
In this case, Gullah in Melbourne.
Right.
And remember, we're looking at a specific community at a specific time. So it's important to note that experiences can vary, even within groups that seem similar.
Absolutely. This isn't about making sweeping generalizations.
No. Okay. So one of the most compelling stories we come across is that of Manny Wax, eldest son.
In a family of 17 children.
Whoa. 17.
Grew up right in the heart of this Chabad community.
But his childhood was, well, marked by something pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
Sexually abused by a security guard.
Employed by the yeshiva center.
Which is basically the community's central institution.
A place of learning, religious life.
Think about the impact of that. A young boy betrayed by someone in a position of authority in an environment that should be safe, sacred.
And he carried the weight of that for decades, kept it secret, dealt with the trauma largely on his own, and eventually it becomes one of the reasons he leaves the ultra-Orthodox world.
It's not just about leaving a community.
It's about escaping a painful past.
Right. And then, in 2011, he makes this incredibly difficult decision to go public.
Huge.
Yeah. It wasn't just about him, though. It was about breaking a culture of silence that had allowed abuse to kind of fester for too long.
His courage was a catalyst, empowered other victims to come forward.
But it also revealed the pressure.
Immense pressure.
To keep things hidden.
Within the community.
Right. And that pressure, it's tied to this concept called bezerah, an ancient Jewish law, right?
Forbidding informing on a fellow Jew.
To non-Jewish authorities.
Right.
It has historical roots. Times of persecution, when turning to outsiders, could have devastating consequences for the entire community.
Imagine that constant threat. Any interaction with authorities could endanger your family, your whole way of life.
It's heavy.
That's the context that shaped this law.
But fast forward to the present, and we see how this fear of Mazira, the fear of being ostracized, created this powerful force for silence. People were terrified to involve the police.
Even when it came to something as serious as child sexual abuse.
And the documentaries show this playing out in painful ways. Manny and his father, Zavanya, they faced intense backlash for speaking out.
Online attacks, shunning.
It's like they became outsiders in their own world.
Exactly.
And it wasn't just them. Other cases of alleged abuse started to emerge, like it was a systemic problem.
We learn about David Kramer, a teacher
at Yeshiva College,
another central institution.
He flees to America after accusations, later jailed for sexual abuse.
So it's not just one bad apple. Starts to look like a bigger issue.
Right. And then there's Daniel Heyman, former Chabad director in Sydney, convicted of sexual abuse, but he received a suspended sentence.
So multiple cases across locations, all within this tight-knit community.
So how did the Yeshiva Center, the heart of this community, respond to these revelations?
Initially, denials, slow to acknowledge the problem, and that just fueled the frustration and anger.
People felt ignored, like their pain wasn't being taken seriously.
Right.
Then there were statements of regret, apologies, but many criticized the institution for not actively supporting the victims.
It seemed reactive, not a real commitment to addressing the root causes.
And it revealed this internal conflict, some pushing for transparency, for accountability, wanting to acknowledge the harm and work towards change.
But others,
yeah,
they clung to the old ways, defending the institution, maybe out of fear, maybe loyalty, maybe a belief that airing these issues would damage the community's reputation.
It's complicated. How do you reconcile deeply held religious beliefs with the need to address harm, to protect people?
It's a tension that so many communities face, and we see it play out here.
And in the middle of all this, you have Zavanya Wax, Manny's father. He was a devout Chabad member, so ingrained in this community. And initially, he didn't want Manny to go public.
He understood the potential consequences, the backlash.
Imagine being that father, wanting to protect your son, but fearing the impact on your family your entire life.
Heartbreaking.
And the films, they show his struggle. He talks about losing friends, not being able to sleep, losing his appetite, being barred from leading prayers in the synagogue.
He dedicated his life to this community.
And in the end, he felt completely betrayed.
Powerful illustration of the personal cost of speaking truth to power. The sacrifices involved in challenging those in power makes you wonder, how much are people willing to sacrifice for justice, for the well-being of others?
It's a big question, and we'll keep exploring as we go deeper into this story. So we were talking about convictions. Cyprus, who abused Manny, got 8 years. Kramer, the teacher, was extradited and jailed, and Hyman got that suspended sentence. But it feels too easy to just say case closed, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, way too simple. Especially when you consider what the victims have gone through. Like, a guilty verdict might feel like, validation,
Sure.
but it doesn't erase the trauma, right? Years of pain, that sense of betrayal.
And we see that in the documentaries, right? Some people, the convictions brought them peace, like, okay, their abusers finally being held accountable. But for others, it just felt hollow, like the punishment didn't fit the crime, or like the legal system just didn't get it.
Didn't understand the depth of their suffering.
Right.
Justice is so personal. What feels like justice to one person might feel totally inadequate to another.
Yeah.
And it often goes beyond just punishment. It's about acknowledgement, validation.
And knowing it won't happen again.
Exactly. A real commitment to preventing future harm.
It's like the wound might heal, but the scar's still there. And it's not just the victims, right?
Of course not. Families went torn apart by this, trying to deal with all these complex emotions, loyalty, betrayal, and that pressure to conform.
To stay silent.
Right. It really shows you how insidious abuse is. It just ripples outward, impacts relationships, trust is broken, it casts a shadow over the entire community.
And the Vonda story is a powerful example of that. Choosing to stand by his son, supporting Manny's decision to go public, even though it meant becoming an outcast.
Losing friends, yeah. Being alienated from the only community he's ever known. He went from respected community member, devout, committed to their faith,
to basically being labeled a traitor.
a Moser, all because he dared to speak out. That's courage, to stand up for what you believe in, even when it means losing everything.
It makes you think about what loyalty really means. Is it blind allegiance to an institution? Or is it about doing what's right, even when it's hard? Even when it challenges the norm?
And that act of defiance, challenging the power structure, it comes at a cost, a huge cost. But it can also be incredibly empowering. It's like a crack in the wall of silence. Others see that and they find their own voice. They share their stories. They demand change.
And that's what happened here, right? Manny's bravery with Savanya right there beside him. It gave others the strength to come forward, to say me too.
They realized they weren't alone, that their experiences mattered.
And that they deserved to be heard.
It created momentum for change within the community, forced them to confront the issue.
But change is never easy, is it?
No, it's not. The documentaries show a lot of resistance, holding on to the old ways, fear of disrupting things.
So what concrete steps were taken to address the abuse? Did they actually acknowledge the problem and try to protect people?
Well, you definitely see a shift in the conversation. There's a push for education, programs aimed at both kids and adults. About abuse, what it looks like, how to report it, understanding that it's not their fault.
It's about breaking that silence, right? So people can speak up, know they'll be heard.
Exactly. And it's not just about internal changes. The films also highlight the need to work with outside authorities, law enforcement, child protection agencies.
But that's tricky, isn't it?
It is. You have the whole history of Missouri, the fear of outsiders.
So how do you navigate that?
Carefully. It's a delicate balance, respecting traditions, but also making sure everyone is safe. There are models that work, rabbis and community leaders working with law enforcement, bridging that gap between religious and secular systems.
It takes trust, though.
Yeah, open dialogue, finding that common ground where everyone's well-being is the priority.
It's a good reminder that change often happens when you bring different perspectives together. Different systems, different ways of seeing things.
Absolutely. And these documentaries, they focus on one community, but the issues, they're everywhere.
Right.
Other religious institutions, schools, sports, wherever there are power imbalances.
It reminds us that protecting children, creating safe spaces, it's on all of us.
We can't just assume it can't happen.
Right.
And it's not just reacting after the fact, it's about preventing it in the first place. Open communication, kids who feel empowered to speak up, and adults who know how to listen.
So as we wrap up this part of the deep dive, what's the takeaway? What's the thing you want to leave with the listener?
I think it comes down to this. If the institutions we trust fail to protect those who need it most, where do we turn? How do we find justice? How do we heal?
Big questions.
It starts with us, with each of us, questioning assumptions, challenging the way things are, not looking away from the hard stuff, listening to the voices that have been silenced, supporting them in their healing, and demanding more from those in charge.
It's about recognizing that this isn't someone else's problem. It's all of ours.
We all have a role to play.
In creating a world where every child feels safe and valued and protected.
Exactly. And while these documentaries have shown us some pretty dark things, they also show us how strong the human spirit is, the courage to speak out, the families who stood by them, the people fighting for change.
There's hope there.
There is a reminder that even when things are incredibly painful, healing is possible.
We've been through a lot in this deep dive. Tough questions, uncomfortable truths. This is a sensitive issue. But it's also about empowering you, the listener, giving you the knowledge to talk about these things, to challenge what you thought you need, to make a difference in your own communities. So we've really gone deep with these documentaries, seen the devastation, the bravery of the victims, the community struggling to figure out how to respond. But I feel like at this point, it's worth asking,
What can we learn?
Yeah, what can we learn? What can we take away from all of this? Where do we go from here?
It's easy to, want to point fingers,
Right.
place blame. But I think it's more about understanding how complex this is and the path to healing.
Yeah.
It's rarely simple. The documentaries, though, they do offer some potential ways forward, but there's no one-size-fits-all answer here.
So what are they? What are some of those glimmers of hope, those ways to make things safer?
Education, that's huge. We see them within the Chabad community pushing for education, both for the kids and adults, about abuse, what to look for, how to report it safely, understanding that it's never the victim's fault.
So important. It's about breaking that silence, that code that's been there for so long.
Empowering people to speak up, to know they will be believed, supported. That's a huge step.
For sure.
And it goes beyond just internal stuff. The documentaries really highlight the need for, collaboration with outside authorities,
Law
enforcement, child protection agencies.
But that's where it gets
tricky.
Yeah, tricky. You've got the whole history of Mizrahi, that fear of bringing in outsiders. So how do you
balance it?
Yeah.
Carefully. You have to be respectful of their traditions.
Right.
But the safety of everyone has to come first.
So it's a tightrope.
It's a tightrope.
Yeah.
But there are ways to make it work. There are models out there where rabbis and community leaders work with law enforcement.
Kind of bridging the gap.
Yeah, between the religious and the secular. It takes open communication, building trust, finding that middle ground
Where
everyone's well-being is the priority.
it's a good reminder that change, real change, often comes from bringing different perspectives together.
Right. Different systems, different ways of seeing the world.
Exactly. And even though these documentaries are focused on a specific community, I feel like the issues they raise.
They're universal.
Yeah.
We see the same struggles in other religious institutions, schools, sports, anywhere you have those power dynamics at play.
It's that reminder that we're all responsible for protecting children, creating those safe spaces. We can't just say, oh, that won't happen here.
Complacency is dangerous.
Absolutely.
And it can't just be about, reacting after something has happened. It has to be about preventing it, open communication, kids who feel comfortable speaking up, adults who know how to listen.
Okay, so we're wrapping up this deep dive. What's the one thing, the one thought that you hope stays with our listener?
After all this, I keep coming back to that question. If the institutions we trust, the ones that are supposed to protect us, if they fail, where do we go from there? How do we find justice? How do we heal?
It's a heavy question.
It is, but it starts with us. Individually, we have to question what we believe, challenge the way things are, don't look away from the hard stuff, hear the voices that have been silenced, support their journey to healing, and demand better from those in charge.
It's realizing this isn't someone else's problem to fix. It's all of ours.
Right. We each have a part to play.
In making a world where every kid is safe, feels valued, protected.
Exactly. And look, these documentaries have been tough, dark, but they also showed us something else, how strong people can be, the courage to come forward, the families who stood by them, the people fighting to make a difference.
It gives me hope.
Me too. It's a reminder that even when it seems impossible, healing can happen. Change can happen.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive. Tough conversations, facing things we'd rather not think about. This is a sensitive topic. But it's also been about giving you the tools, giving you the knowledge to have these conversations, to question what you thought was true, to make a difference in your homes, in your communities. That's what it's all about.